words memento mori?
It means remember death.
There are many kinds of death. And some are better than others.
There's no discharge in the war.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to the channel. We recently received some all-new information on the upcoming 28 Years Later that could shed some much-needed light on one of the most intriguing aspects of the trailers thus far, and that, of course, is the mysterious Bone Temple, and, of course, who built it and why. And thanks to the tiniest of details in the latest featurette, it looks like we may have a definitive answer. Up until this point, the Bone Temples have been one of the most intriguing aspects of the film thus far, and it seems that there is one character in particular that seems to have a very deep connection to the Bone Temple, and that, of course, is Ralph Fiennes' character, Dr. Ian Kelson. And with the release of this newest featurette, it shines some much-needed light on his character and who he potentially is, and of course, if he was indeed the one who originally built the Bone Temple, a theory that is becoming more and more likely. The featurette starts off with Ralph Fiennes talking a little bit about Dr. Ian Kelson, and how he is not only a humanist, but is deeply compassionate as well. And more importantly, someone who has found a deep acceptance of death, and the inevitability of it, making his line about memento mori that much more prevalent.
Dr. Ian Kelson is a doctor, a humanist, a man who is compassionate. He's someone who has accepted the fact of death.
Do you know the words memento mori?
It means remember death.
After all, the whole concept behind memento mori is the acceptance of death, and to live one's life to its fullest because one day we will all indeed die. A very fitting mantra for someone who has built a literal temple to death. One thing we learned in the featurette is that Ralph Fiennes' character has apparently lived on his own for the last 28 years, which pokes a hole in my original theory that he could have potentially been a member of Holy Island once upon a time, as the evidence now suggests that he has been a mainlander the entire time. The idea that he was potentially a member of Holy Island in the past was heavily predicated on the fact that Spike seems to knowingly search him out, indicating that Spike must have had some kind of knowledge about his presence ahead of time, as opposed to him wandering the mainland aimlessly in search of a doctor for his dying mother. And while I do believe Spike had first-hand knowledge about the existence of Dr. Kelson, I don't believe it is because he was a member of Holy Island, but rather learned about Dr. Kelson through his father, Jamie. In the recent leaked 5-minute preview of 28 Years Later, we have a particular line from Aaron Taylor Johnson's character Jamie, telling his son Spike that there are strange people living on the mainland, indicating that Jamie has potentially had some run-ins with some of these strange mainlanders in the past, with one of those encounters potentially being with Dr. Kelson himself, which could be why Spike knows about him.
There are strange people on the mainland, roaming.
Did Jamie potentially tell his son Spike a bedtime story of sorts at some point in the past, telling him a story about a strange hermit man living on the mainland stacking bones high in the sky? Could this potentially be why Spike knew there was a doctor somewhere on the mainland? And if so, why exactly has Dr. Kelson been living on his own for the past 28 years in the wild, making him completely unprotected and vulnerable to any infected that might cross his path? And if so, just what kind of role is he going to have in the upcoming film, and what is the definitive evidence pointing to him being the one who built the Bone Temple? Not only did Ralph Fiennes talk about Dr. Kelson living on his own for the last 28 years, but also talked about how impressed he was with the depth and detail of the character, and states how the audience might find him a little bit creepy at times, but he really is a complicated guy. The new featurette starts off with a new scene of Spike, his mom, and Dr. Kelson crossing the river heading to the Bone Temple, followed by an all-new shot of what appears to be Dr. Kelson operating a makeshift steamer of sorts, which, in my opinion, is part of his process for preparing bones to be added to the Bone Temple. And in this scene, it appears that Dr. Kelson is preparing a skull for Spike to add to the Bone Temple himself, as we've seen depicted in some of these stills and in some of the posters, as we have not only seen a shot of Dr. Kelson handing Spike a freshly cleaned skull, but we have also seen a recent poster of Spike adding a new skull to the top of the Bone Temple, begging the question, just whose skull is this exactly? And could it potentially be one of his parents? After all, we do know that Spike is in search of a doctor for his dying mother, so there is a potential chance that she didn't survive, while some fans believe that the skull is that of Jamie himself. And then, of course, there's also the possibility of it just being a random skull. We have seen in previous trailers a shot of what appears to be Dr. Kelson in front of a large field of bodies, seemingly preparing them to be added to the Bone Temple. And giving the point of view and the bows that are in frame, I get the feeling that this is Jamie and his son Spike happening upon Dr. Kelson while he's in the field, which could potentially be another explanation as to why Spike knows about the doctor in the first place, with Jamie and Spike stumbling upon him when Jamie takes his son on his very first hunt into the mainland at the beginning of the film, explaining why Spike knew where to go to find a doctor. We also get another shot of Dr. Kelson teaching Spike about memento mori, almost as though he's trying to prepare him for accepting death himself.
Do you know the words memento mori?
It means remember death.
Could this potentially be more evidence that one of his parents did indeed die and that was one of their skulls that he is adding to the Bone Temple? As we then get another shot of Ralph Fiennes discussing his character and how he potentially survives day to day. Which then brings us to the very subtle clue in the featurette, which in my opinion points to definitive evidence that Ralph Fiennes' character was indeed the one who built the Bone Temple. And given the kind of filmmaker that Danny Boyle is, and his meticulous attention to detail that he pays, I get the feeling that this is no coincidence. When we're first introduced to the Bone Temple, we see some subtle details and some interesting construction methods that seem to be consistent throughout, and in particular, how some of the bones on the Bone Temple are held up in the first place. When we take a look at some of the pillars of the Bone Temple, we see a very interesting pattern of rope that is binding all of these bones together and creating this pillar and keeping it upright. A very distinctive style of knot that seems to be consistent throughout the pillars. And then when we take a closer look at Ralph Fiennes' camp next to the Bone Temple, and in particular his makeshift steamer that he has built, we see the exact same rope and knot method holding up his contraption. A subtle detail, yes, but one I get the feeling Danny Boyle put in there very specifically, pointing to the potential fact that Dr. Kelson built both the steamer and the Bone Temple itself, which I do believe was the case. And on top of that, we also know that Dr. Kelson has a very strange and deep understanding and even fascination with death. It would make perfect sense for a character like this to build a monument to death itself. And then, of course, there's the question as to what role Dr. Kelson is going to be playing in the film as well. And when breaking down the story arc of the hero's journey, his role seems to become a bit more clear. One thing that we have heard Danny Boyle state recently is that Spike is going to be the central character that connects all three films. And I very much get the feeling that we are going to see Spike go on the classic version of the hero's journey tale throughout this trilogy. And when taking a closer look at the structure of the hero's journey, there are three main steps that it usually follows, with the first step being the departure or separation, with the second step being initiation, and the third step being the return, with each one of these steps having smaller stages built within. And since this is going to be a trilogy, I get the feeling this first 28 years later film is going to be dealing with the first step, the departure. And during the first step, there are a few other smaller stages that happen throughout, the first of which being the ordinary world, which showcases the hero's life before the adventure, with the second stage being the call to action, an event that disrupts the hero's ordinary world, prompting them to embark on a journey, which in this case is most likely going to be Spike departing to try and find a doctor for his dying mother, with the next stage being the refusal of the call, where the hero has his initial first doubts about the journey, usually due to fear, followed by the next step, meeting the mentor, in which the hero receives guidance or support from a mentor, often an older, wiser figure, which is undoubtedly going to be Dr. Kelson in this instance. The part that the mentor plays in the hero's journey is one of the most vital, as he provides wisdom and guidance that helps the hero prepare for their journey ahead, and come to terms with some of the things that they're going to have to do on said journey. In many of the trailers, we see Dr. Kelson providing Spike with exactly that, preparing him for the journey to come and teaching him about the importance of death, in hopes that he may be better prepared to handle the problems that lie ahead of him. Overall, I get the feeling that Dr. Kelson is going to be one of the most intriguing characters that we are going to meet in the entire film. And seeing the kind of depth that an actor the caliber of Ralph Fiennes is going to bring to a character like this is going to be interesting. And I'm certainly looking forward to learning a lot more about Dr. Kelson. Where has he been for the last 28 years? How has he survived all on his own? And why did he build the Bone Temple in the first place? Whatever the case ends up being, I get the feeling he's going to be one of the most fascinating characters in the entire trilogy. But that is going to do it today for our recent breakdown of the latest featurette on Dr. Kelson, and what we believe is definitive proof that he was indeed the one who built the Bone Temple. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on your way out and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming content. And don't forget to come and join us every Friday and Sunday night for our 28 Years Later live streams. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there for watching, and we will see you on the next one.
There's no discharge in the war.